All right, another episode of Confessions of a Street Broker. Today, got a man who deals in two asset classes that have got a lot of attention lately. Texas office and industrial with Colliers, Mr. Cody Payne. What's up, man?
Man, I'm glad to be here. I love the show. I was telling you about it a second ago. I was pretty excited to come here and hop on and talk to you about it and see the set, see the place, see what y'all are working on. Everything looks good.
Yeah, no, thanks for being here, man. It's something I just want to kind of start off with is like this is all based around this is a lot of social media stuff, right? Which you subscribe to, and so I think it's good. I think we're in the very low innings of capitalizing on social media and commercial real estate because a lot of people don't use it, but you and your team seem to use it, and I love y'all use it in a real funny way, which I love.
I was gonna say I think we have more fun with it than we use it for business. Because we are good at making little videos. We got a fun little video editor at the office. And I think we just have more fun with it than anything. Because a lot of it says not always directed towards business, just kind of us being out having a good time.
Well, I think that's part of it though, right? People need to see you as a person as well. It's like that's like me and Will making fun of corporate speak all the time. It needs to be just funny, like, we make fun of these things, or we do that.
I used to be I was asked to tone it down on LinkedIn a long time ago. I used to be a little more brutal on there, and just having fun with it. But we love making little videos and posts and things of that nature.
I love your little stick where you like walk out of the restaurant and you like flick your toothpick.
My what's funny is my mom and my wife are always asking me to do it. We go out all the time. I'm real close to my parents, and we live real close to each other, and so we go out to eat. We hang out all the time, and they're always like, "Hey, do the thing with the ding and put a saying underneath it." And I'm like, "All right, let's do it."
It's hilarious. I love seeing them. It's I wonder why more people don't use social media though on commercial real estate.
I think some people don't want to do it because they're either not sure what to do or maybe just too embarrassed to do it. Yeah. I think some people have that, and also, the age that we're in, especially depending on the company you work for, it can be taken a little bit, differently too. I've definitely been affected by that in the past. And so, I don't know. I think, but more and more people are coming around to it.
I can't get one guy from CBRE to come on my show.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. They're all just, I think they're all afraid of the machine.
Yeah.
So,
hey, you know what? I mean, I think the only benefit that I have is, I grew up in Grand Prairie, didn't have any money, and it doesn't really matter if it's taken away or not. I mean, I had fun without it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that, man. Tell us your story. You grew up in Grand Prairie?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just a kid from Grand Prairie. Went to Grand Prairie High, and
you're a Gopher?
I'm a Gopher,
All right. I played a couple games in the Gopher Bowl.
Did you? That's a good bowl.
Oh, yeah. It's an awesome little stadium.
It's a great little stadium. I never played football. I did some karate and stuff like that. Yeah. I was always into cars.
Yeah.
And, I was maybe 100 and something pounds, like real thin back in high school. Not any better now, but no, I grew up out there, and, actually, when I, got started, I was actually selling cars right out of high school, and I wanted to get into real estate because I always wanted to own a Cadillac. I'd never that was kind of like my dream back then.
Yeah.
And met a guy who I think David Dunn, and he was ironically the only one in DFW that would hire me.
Yeah, that's where Jeff started.
Yeah,
David Dunn. Yeah.
And so, I give a lot of credit to him. I was with him for a long time, almost a decade, and
a lot of guys have started with David Dunn.
I'll tell you. I mean, I'm very thankful for him because he gave me a shot when no others would.
Yeah.
You got plenty of other companies out there that I tried interviewing with, and nobody wanted somebody straight out of high school. And my family doesn't have any money either, so I didn't have either of those things to kind of say, hey, at least I got a wealthy dad that can give me business. I didn't have none of that, and so. I started with him, and he just kind of said, hey, he did, a lot of bigger industrial leases and things of that nature. And he just said, hey, I'll hire you go to college at night, do whatever and just kind of stay out of my way and, kind of build something on your own. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so I worked for him for a long time and it was good.
Yeah.
It was real good.
That's awesome. So you were at Sperry Van Ness then. So you're right out of high school went into commercial real estate.
Yeah, at 18.
That's crazy because most guys don't get in until they get out of college.
Well, that's why nobody would hire me, I think.
Yeah, probably not. But I mean, like, kudos for you for trying to go that route right then, and, maybe that's the, being from Grand Prairie, like, Jeff and I are from South Irving, we all kind of got a little chip on our shoulder, right?
Yeah, South Irving's the same thing. I mean, that's sitting on Grand Prairie, But, I was selling cars at Westway Ford and I knew I wanted to do more than that. And I always felt like I was a little crafty and, I was good at getting knocked down and picked back up. And so...
well, what made you think about commercial real estate, though? Because at 18, that's a pretty insightful thing to know that I want to go into that. So,
well, I didn't want to do residential.
Yeah.
And I always thought it would be cool to sell a large office building.
Okay.
I was always like, man, I think that's what the guy... I think he died in Die Hard, but remember the guy that was like the broker that thought he would go talk to the bad guy. So I think that's what he did.
Yeah.
And so I liked that. And, and so I just always thought that'd be cool. And,
he walks in, he's like, let me handle this. And they just shoot him.
Yeah. I wanted to be him up until that point. But, no, I just, I'd met a few guys that did it. And, they always wore nice suits, had nice watches, had things that, I'd never had. And I said, you know what, I think I can do that. And so, just went around trying to find somebody. David Dunn said, let's go. And
how'd you find David Dunn?
Ironically, my mom was a receptionist at Kelly Lundeen and Crawford.
Okay. Is that a law firm?
No, that was actually the company that David Dunn worked for before he started his own.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so, and he was in Arlington. There's only a couple firms in Arlington. And so she said, hey, go interview over there. Maybe he'll, try it. And so you only got him and, SCM over there at the time. And that was close enough to Grand Prairie. So I did that.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you worked with David, you were there almost 10 years, huh?
Yeah. So I was with him before he was in Sperry Van Ness when he was Dunn Commercial, which I think that's when maybe your brother worked with him there. And so then he bought into the Sperry Van Ness franchise, which, as you remember, I mean, back in 2008-9, that thing was on a rise.
Yeah.
There was like 5 or 6 of those things out here in DFW alone.
Yeah.
And then left there, went to Marcus and Millichap, because I was doing a lot of leasing too, and I wanted to get more into investment sales.
Yeah.
And, David was big on leasing, and I just said, I really want to build an investment sales team. I want to do office and, flex industrial, and just kind of wanted to try to make a name for myself, because when you work under an individual, that can sometimes be a little more difficult. I mean, I'm not making it an excuse, but it's always, sometimes people want to talk to the owner of the company.
Yeah.
And then I just felt like, hey, I can go out here and maybe operate on a clean slate and just kind of, start over. And that's what I did there, and then started adding several guys that are still with me today. And so we were at Marcus for 5. I think we've been at Colliers now I think we just hit our 5 years there. And I still have the same guys that have been with me since then.
Yeah. So what led you to leave Marcus and go to Colliers?
Really, the only thing, I enjoyed Marcus and Millichap a lot. I liked it a lot. The only thing is, I kind of looked around and, obviously I don't want to do brokerage for the rest of my life, even though I enjoy it. But, when you look around and you look at some of these firms and you go, man, I'm starting to get to be one of the older guys here. And I'm only 37 years old.
Yeah.
And, it's just a place that, where a lot of people go through to learn and train and things of that nature. And so when I went to, when I was talking to Colliers and you go through there and you see, hey, there are older guys that are here and have been here for, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. It just felt more like, hey, this is, I think, a better future for me at the time. And so, who knows what the future is, what we're going to keep doing. I mean, we're going to keep, selling and bringing stuff out and promoting what we do. But I've enjoyed it thus far. I've met some really good guys. Ward Richmond, he's turned into a good friend that, I shout every now and then. Him and I have a lot of outlook together, and several other people at Colliers too. And so I've enjoyed it.
That's cool, man. Y'all got a great little office over there in Fort Worth too, man.
We have a blast. I mean, we operate all over DFW. Actually, we operate all over Texas, but the only reason I live out there is because my parents are on that side of town now.
Yeah.
And so, because I used to, when I was working in Grand Prairie, I actually moved to Addison for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So you live in Fort Worth now?
I live in Azle now.
Azle.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I actually just did a dream of mine. I bought a piece of land, cut it in half, and my parents are building a house on it, and I'm building a house on the other side.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
How many acres did you buy?
14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, very excited.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. No, I built a house, man. I was not aiming to build a house, but I ended up building one. It's kind of how the cards played out, and I really enjoyed I ended up enjoying the process a lot more than I thought I would.
I hated it. I just built my last house. I literally finished it a year ago, and then I sold it. And I was like, I'll never build again, and now I'm building another one.
Well, I say that my wife did a really good job not going over budget. So that made it very easy.
That's good. I mean, kudos to her. It's that can be very hard for people.
The end product that I got, though, I'm really pleased with. So I got what I wanted. I don't feel like I really missed anything I would change. Not too much. So thankfully.
Well, like I said, I thought I built the perfect house last time, and so we're just gonna do it again.
Yeah, there you go. Well, so you kind of operate in two I'd say a lot of eyes on them asset classes right now, and
good and bad,
good and bad for good and bad reasons. So, I mean, let's start with the bad one, right? You're pretty in tune with selling kind of a Class B office building. That's kind of the wheelhouse, right? Like
we've just done it for so long, that I think we're pretty good at it just because we've done it for so long. Mm-hmm. And you also got an office market that a lot of people don't want to play in right now either.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot of advantages in us still operating in it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, our real future focus is the small bay flex industrial.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, as you know, you're in. I mean, it continues to expand and do well. I mean, quite a bit of it's getting oversaturated. But yeah, the office side, I was actually just talking to Will out there a second ago. I mean, what's crazy about it is, I actually had invested in office and I sold all that off several years ago. I had no interest in office anymore because I didn't feel that it was a good investment at the time. And I think it's got quite a ways to go before it hits rock bottom. And I don't even think any of us will know when it does.
Yeah.
But I think that there's still good opportunity out there for folks. And surprisingly enough, I mean, we're still selling quite a bit of it. I mean, we just brought out 3 in Richardson, and all 3 are different owners, all under contract.
Are there owner users showing up more now to buy them?
Yeah, some.
Because is it the same investor players that were in the past, or is it new groups? Or?
No, that's the craziest thing about it, and it's very similar in the flex stuff too. Is the buyers today for office are not the same buyers 3 years ago. I mean, some of those guys are still in there, but most of those are bottom feeders, right, at this point. And so your new buyers are people that are new to real estate, maybe new family offices, maybe cross-asset guys coming over to it. You do have some redevelopers that are looking at some of this stuff. The multifamily conversion that didn't really take off like we'd all kind of hoped. When all that started first buzzing, I was like, man, we're going to sell every building in this town, and it's going to be an apartment complex, and we're going to ride off into the sunset. And I think maybe 3 in all of DFW, ended up actually
being able to convert, and I think one of them didn't even finish, right?
Well, there's 4 I think went into foreclosure because they couldn't do it.
They couldn't finish them. Yeah.
But there's still a need for it. There's still a lot of office out there. A lot of those guys I feel are not, especially on the Class B side. That's the side that's getting hurt the most, because where their TIs used to be 10 or 15, now they're 40, 45. But the rental rate's actually maybe gone down in some areas, because if you go lease a space in Richardson, most of that area out there, like on Arapahoe and whatnot, the rates are cheaper today than whenever I leased out there almost 20 years ago.
That's so
and
crazy.
So, but the only difference is your TIs are much higher, your expenses annually are much higher. And so you've got a lot of problems out there. And I mean, it's not just there. I mean, it's all across the U.S. I mean, you get CoStar alerts, I'm sure, and you probably see, like Houston, for example. I mean, there's multiple mid-rises being listed, seems like daily.
Yeah. It's, the office owner, too, is kind of at a crossroads, right? He's at these he's got a lot of decisions to make, right? Because if you're a Class B office owner, maybe like off the beaten path, like you're not on, we're sitting on the toll road right now, which helps a lot.
Oh yeah.
But if you're off down Preston or something like that, you got to think about all the, amenities and all this stuff. And do you put all that money into it to then nab a tenant that's going to dink you for $40 a foot in TI on top of all that? Like it can get,
I think most are to be honest with you, I think most are in a no-win situation.
Yeah.
And, at some point, like in anything in life, there's plenty of stocks that I've cut and run on. There's, I was in Vegas the other day. I cut and run out there too. I was telling Will about that. We've seen several people cut and run, and in some cases, that makes sense. We run scenarios for guys saying, hey, this is what it looks like if you hold it and, lease it up and the money's being spent and time, and whether it's 4 or 5, 10 years down the road. I'll tell you, most of them that are under $20 kind of gross or plus E leases, if they're, really struggling in the 50s percentile or whatnot, there's really not a solid, clear path to prosperity in the short term. And so it's, but it's just like, when the market crashed in 08, 9, 10, there are people that are struggling big time and they held on and benefited, later on down the road. And so, that may be the thing that needs to be done as well. But I think the problem that we have now that we didn't have then is inflation has just ran rampant on it, and taxes and insurance, which I'm sure y'all deal with nonstop, is the biggest hurdle. And a lot of that office isn't triple net.
So what about, when you're pitching a lot of these deals right now and you're kind of coming in with your valuation on it, is there often times where it's equivalent or below what the debt on the building is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And do you know if most of these loans they have are recourse or non-recourse?
A lot of the private guys, you'd be surprised how many are recourse.
Yeah.
Syndicators, you'd be surprised how many of those are also recourse.
Yeah.
But you got a lot when you're dealing with the bigger companies, those are going to be a lot more non-recourse. And so that's why you've seen several of those, just
throw the keys back
and move on down the road. But you got a lot of folks that just don't have that ability and have, a lot of recourse that would come their way. And so, I don't know, only time will tell. I think it's got a few more years of struggle before it starts getting better, because it wasn't just COVID that hurt it. The economy, just the technology. My wife, she is an accountant and she worked in the office for 10 years. And just recently they're like, hey, you work from home, no problem.
Yeah. No. And so, you said earlier, no one really knows where the bottom's at in office. And, my limited view of office is when you see like a tenant. Here's been my one theory. I think when you see, if someone did a study on how many multiple floor plate leases were signed prior to COVID, which were probably all 10-year leases that are set to expire, I think those tenants will renew, but they're not renewing all those floor plates. So I don't think till at least after 2030 do you really know what all vacancies coming back to the market, because, you could have a tenant in 5 floor plates and they come back and give you 3 of them. And then,
yeah, that's why I say you've got plenty of time left over, because, also the thing is, nobody counts in sublease space in markets, and DFW has a very heavy sublease, presence right now. So does Houston, so does, Oklahoma City. A lot of major cities do. But nobody counts that. And I think if you count that, you're probably in the high 60s, low 70s on average across the board.
What's crazy is they're looking at building I think Crow's going to build 3 million square feet of spec office in Frisco. And somebody else is building another 3 million feet of spec office in Frisco. I know, you hear all the time that, Class A office is where the flight to, there's a flight to quality, all that stuff. That's a good one. We should use that to make fun of people. But at some point, I don't feel like I don't tenant rep office, but I just don't see a ton of big blocks of space getting taken up, because I feel like the companies that are expanding in the office space are companies like us, right? Smaller little businesses that are starting to grow versus big floor plate to big floor plate type deals. So,
well, and COVID actually had the reverse effect, because many years ago, the average square feet per office employee was like 230. Now it's like 178. It's actually gone down.
Okay.
And so, whereas you would have thought with COVID, they'd just be shoving people farther away from each other. But, I guess that didn't happen.
Well, I guess you kind of started getting more of the open concept where you could plow more people in a office, and not everybody got an office anymore. The kind of hotel, I guess.
Our place is all cubes.
Yeah. So, no, I would think the lenders. The lenders got to be really working with people on these things because they don't want these things back.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, they are. We sold multiple foreclosures last year. And I mean, the lenders were very different this go around than, 12, 14 years ago. When they took them back, I mean, both their exact words were, we do not want these buildings at all.
Yeah.
Like, what's their fastest route to exit?
Are the other lenders willing to take a haircut?
The ones that we dealt with were, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that haircut might just be the offset between what was owed and what was sold for, and the seller pretty much probably walks with nothing but doesn't get pursued, I would think. Or
no, one of them sold for substantially less than what the loan was on it. It was a new construction deal, built to spec, very nice, very high end office. But they, it was definitely lopsided. And then we did another one out in McKinney, and that was lopsided as well.
Yeah.
And there have been several others that were so far lopsided that we're still in talks and how to figure it out. And it seems like it comes down to the, same finish line where we say, hey, look, you can keep leasing it. We got great leasing guys here at Colliers, and here's your cost, here's your TI cost, here's your operational cost, and here's this and that. And you need to, and they can get very overwhelmed very easily with all of that. And obviously that's our objective, when we're trying to get something to sell it, is to, get it off the books and move it down the road. But yeah, I was on the phone with a lender yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I mean, they're going to kick the can down the road a little farther because they don't want it.
Yeah. No, I had a lender call me on a 220,000 foot asset at Legacy West.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, he goes, hey man, you want to buy this paper off me for $15 million? And it was like $66 a foot. And I was like, man, this feels really good. And it also feels like a trap, and I was like, and I don't know how to get out of this trap. So it's not for me, but man, it felt like a deal, I mean, you could walk to Legacy West from this office building.
They're just so capital intensive right now that's probably where your stomach was kind of turning, was the money that's got to go into it.
Yeah, totally.
To get it done.
And then, I mean, capitalizing it, getting people to invest in it, seems like that's probably a tough thing to go right now too. So.
Oh yeah. And I was actually talking to a guy earlier today. We find it funny that some of these funds that have lost office buildings into foreclosure then turn around and send the same email to their investors like, hey, we got another opportunity here for you. Love to get some more cash. And,
what I haven't ever understood was how these funds lose money and then go raise another one.
And several of them have zero issues raising it.
None. Like, if I lost money on a deal, I think I'd be done. Like, I don't think my investors, they'd be like, oh, hey man, thanks.
Good try.
This is good. We took an L on that last one. We're gonna sit these out. So I
agree. And there's plenty of them out there.
I know
that have lost and then go back to the same people and ask for money again.
Maybe some investors at that level just have a perceived risk. They're like, oh, there's always, I don't know. I feel like my investors expect me to win on every deal. So it's like, but I guess at that level, maybe they're like, oh yeah, deals lose. We'll just start over and do it again with you. I don't know.
Well, and I think that's me and our team's problem is we are way too safe. And so we don't invest in as much as we should and could and miss out on a lot of stuff. Because if it's not a slam dunk home run, we run away from it.
My brother asked me one time, he goes, have you ever lost on a deal? I go, no. He goes, I haven't either. Do you think we're taking enough risk? I was like, well, I don't know. I'll keep the track record going. Yeah. But I think maybe some guys will take a stretch on a deal because they don't have deal flow, and they're trying to do it. So they'll reach on a deal and
we see it all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, let's move to the darling asset class, the flex space, man. That's
It's doing good. It's evolved a lot.
It has.
When I first started in the industry, it was a difficult asset. Nobody really wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one guy called it the dirty fingernail of asset classes. Made me feel really good.
Yeah.
But it's evolved a lot. It's being built everywhere. It's a new developer's kind of dream, like somebody that, a smaller time guy that wants to come in and build a small bay flex park. I mean, it's generally pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
And so that's why you see these metal parks just being built everywhere, oversaturating certain areas, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it's a very good, very friendly asset class. And, besides self-storage, it's probably one of the best inflation fighters that you'll find for re-tenanting.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, when a tenant leaves, you're not spending an absorbent amount of money on refinishing the space. And the tenant pool is big and vast and, does really well. And I think as more and more larger groups look at it, it will help the pricing. But pricing is high on it right now. It's doing pretty good.
It has. We we bought that Seagoville Business Park, and we were in the mid-teens, on the pricing on millions, and it. I think the PCA had $22,000 on it that we had to fix. To your point about there just not being much to do. And, and then some of those spaces when they come out of, when the tenant moves, I mean, like most of them have like window unit air conditioners. So it's like we don't even have to replace an AC. You know what I mean? So, I mean, like the CapEx is really low on those. Some of them we have that are a little more intense, but for the most part, to your point, there's just not a lot of capital expenditure has to go into a small bay park.
No, and these are popping up everywhere. And, we've been helping people find land, get them built, sell them, and been having a really good time on it. It's one of the better cross-asset investment classes. So, we've been selling to multifamily guys. We just had an office co-working group that, primarily invested in office, come over and buy some flex off of us. Working with storage guys, retail guys. And so it's brought a really interesting, buyer pool where your typical ones have maybe dropped out due to interest rates. Those have a lot of time been refilled by these new to market buyers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what I would think you would see a lot of crossover asset buyers on that because it's
easy to run.
Yeah. Especially like it's kind of like the apartment complex of, industrial, right? You know what I mean? So I could see a lot of multifamily guys coming over there. There are easy aspects to run about it. I will say the property management of it is way more intense than
people think it is.
Yeah. And we've actually subbed out just about all of our small beta fort since that's, what they own. And they have a third party platform and they're doing a great job handling that for us. So we were at a point. So I think if you're going to own a bunch of those assets, we got to a kind of a crossroads of like, man, I'm gonna have to scale up some property managers. And I just didn't really want that many employees. So I was like, I'll just third party this and we'll focus on being deal assassins. That's where we make our money.
There you go.
So so we made that decision and gave Ford a big chunk of our portfolio to manage it. So
well, good. But that's one thing that people sometimes underestimate is the management side of it because some of these. I mean, we sold one that had 110 tenants in it. 110 AC units.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of traffic, a lot of things. People are rough on these. You're dealing with smaller private companies, private individuals for the most part, that sometimes there can be a little rougher on the spaces. But at the end of the day, when you compare it to other assets, I mean, the capital involved is generally not anywhere as close as it is in office, retail, and multifamily.
Yeah. So, a lot of the business strategy on buying these existing parks is to kind of find the guy that didn't really know how to operate it that well, didn't really keep up with market rents. I see this relationship start where the tenant's like, well, he's like, my tenants never bother me. Well, they never bother you because your rent is like half of what it should be. So you get into these things and then you meet the tenants and they're like, well, my AC doesn't work. Well, did you not call the landlord? Well, I don't call him because I know my rent's cheap.
Yeah, I didn't call him because I'm paying $4.
So they get into this this little death loop, where they don't, so then, we've been the bad guy numerous times where we bought these things and we come in and we're like, hey, we're hey, we're going to get these to market. And, you're the devil. We hate you. How could you do this to us? We get all these things, and you really find out what's all the issues with the building whenever you tell them you're going to raise their rent, so which is fine, which we totally prepared to, hey, we'll pay for them. They're like, dang it, I didn't want that answer.
Yeah, well, that's why you need to send in like somebody else to go in, and if you're trying to get it to 12, send someone else in to be the bad guy and try to get them at 14, and then you come in and you go, all right, man, I'm sorry about that guy. Here's 12.
Yeah. Man, I had a park we bought in Marble Falls, and I usually lose, we bought a 90,000 foot park. I think we had 38 tenants in there. We didn't lose one of them when we raised their rent.
That's pretty good.
They were mad, but they knew that, they'd had it great for a long time.
You probably did a pizza party or something on a Friday. That's probably why they didn't leave.
No, there was, I will say our broker was William LeMasters on it, and man, they had a pitchfork town hall meeting surrounding him.
Well, good.
So he had a trial by fire on it, but he did a great job of getting it done. The Seagoville Business Park, this is what was interesting. The rents were so low when we bought it, and everybody's month to month, right? That's another thing I see. It's like all these tenants think they're in a great position because they're in a month to month lease.
Yeah.
And they're really not, because at any moment, something.
You can jack it up.
You can jack it up. So we go in there. We had 185,000 feet. We lost 75,000 feet of the park.
Oh, wow.
But for the remaining 110,000 feet that we redid their leases, the NOI was greater without those 75,000, and then we just re-tenanted it back up. And then,
well, there you go.
So, I understand. And so then this park in Marble Falls we had, I went in there and we told everybody, I said, listen, the rents are $12 a foot. We'd like to give you your first year at $9 a foot to they were paying $6.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're kind of acclimate you into this. I mean, you would have thought we were the devil, like just cussing us out and all these things. Everyone moved out.
Oh, wow.
But we had it was a 28,000 foot park. We had a 16,000 foot freestanding building and one other little building. And like, we got those two leased up, and it has more NOI than when everybody was in there. And we still have a vacant building with it.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, I was kind of like, you got to be ready for the fallout on those deals when you buy the mark-to-market situation. But I don't see I feel like a lot of those stones have been overturned by now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like multifamily was, where people would go in and replace the sink and raise the rent $50. I mean, we still run across it. We just sold 2 up there in North Fort Worth. They were probably half the market rent. And
yeah.
We told the guy that was buying it, and he kind of knew it and understood the area, and he's like, hey, I want to get these guys $12, bucks, and we're like, well, you're going to lose a bunch of guys because these guys are here, they've been here a long time, they just can't afford it. But I know he lost some guys getting them there, but you still can find those. You still have some older owners that you're right are like that, where they're like, man, these guys don't bother me at all. And you're like, well, I wouldn't either if I was paying you $200 a month for 1,200 feet, And so you do have some of those, but just not as many.
Yeah.
And then in the markets where we do see that, like in East Texas and some of these others, I mean, those areas you just don't want to be in general.
Right. Right. So y'all don't do the leasing on it though, right?
We've got a guy in our office that does very good at leasing. We've got some good contacts in Houston and other markets that do really good leasing. But as far as like me, Trey, and Austin and whatnot, we don't do any.
Yeah, no, because that's the one challenge I've found with them is finding. You got to find the right broker to lease those things.
A high velocity broker.
You got to have a high velocity broker, probably a younger guy. That'll just go. Just go work it. Like we have a 50,000 foot small bay deal, and I had one listing team on it. I could just tell they were just fetching whatever they were just catching whatever phone call came to them.
Yeah,
and then I was like, man, I don't know who to hire. My nephew just got in the business, and I was like, this is perfect for somebody like you.
That's a great start.
Just go call on all these other little competing parks. And he's calling me every day. Man, I'm calling this guy. We're going on a tour right now. I'm like, that's what you need to fill those things. Is
put them on Facebook, put them on Craigslist, get everybody, and you want as many in, and to where you're then filtering out the good and the bad. And so, but I mean, if you're going to make a good living in the flex side, I know several guys that do. A good friend of mine in Houston, Ryan, he probably does 100 plus leases a year.
Yeah.
But you got to do it. You got to be high velocity. You got to get the lease out that day. I mean, and so we got another guy in our office that he's very good at that. But, he's also getting stuff signed up that day, shipping it off, moving down the road.
Yeah. We, so when we bought the first real small bay park we bought was that 90,000 footer. And when I was under due diligence, I was like, man, I got to develop a new lease that's like 5 pages. Because
the shorter the better.
If I send them a NACAR lease, their eyes are going to go cross. So like we just made a condensed version. It's 5 pages, and like I very rarely do we get lease comments. It's kind
of like those boxer leases back in the day. Remember those were like 1 pages?
Yeah. There you go. That's Boxer did a great job servicing that. Just like, hey, you want to lease an office space? There you go. And step on in.
I did the same. I built a boat and RV storage facility out in Weatherford years ago. I sold it, but I made a very simple lease. It was like, hey, I can sue you and you have no rights. It's like, that was it.
Yeah. So I saw you mention this in a post one time, and I totally agree with it. But like, I think you said something to the effect that self-storage coupled with flex doesn't really work well together. Did you say that?
It's a terrible cocktail.
Yeah.
We've sold multiple parks that have it. And the problem is flex guys don't want storage guys don't want flex.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason you have storage guys that are, independent guys that will build a storage facility and they'll have some extra land. They're like, hey, cash is cash. Let's get some, let's put some flex out here. And then they wonder why, hey, how come I'm not getting the same value that, this would sell for, this would sell for. And I got a prime example because we just executed another one is we sold one park out there that was flex and small bay. I'm sorry, flex and self-storage. That sold for about 84 foot. We did a flex park 2 doors down at 137.
Yeah.
And it's because it was hard to find somebody that wanted to manage a storage facility. And, the storage guys were like, we don't really want to manage flex. And so you can't because storage is, heavily institutionalized too now.
Yeah.
And so we're not storage guys. So we don't have the storage buyer database. We're very strict in the lanes that we run in. But that's something that people continue to do. And hopefully it'll create its own buyer pool at some point.
On our Seagoville Business Park, we had to buy a 172 unit storage unit with it. And it's been the biggest pain in our ass out of any of our assets. People act like it's automated and all this stuff. No, I mean, it is the biggest pain in our ass. So, I mean, I'm a Matthews guy called on me, and I appreciate it because he's been calling on me, and he called me the other day and he goes, hey, I'm just following up with you on your self-storage unit. I remember you telling me it's the biggest pain in your ass, so I'm just here ready to sell it for you when you're ready. And I'm like, hey, I'm glad you took notes and remember that. So keep calling me. And I was like, my note comes due and this date, and when it comes due on the way out, like, dude, I'm going to be looking at pulling the trigger on this thing.
Can you not parcel it off?
I can, but we need to just do a little more work on the rents to kind of get it up and sell it. But I think when the refinance comes, that's when I'm going to part that out, refinance, and hold that thing long term.
So when I built the boat and RV facility, I did that because those guys are usually longer term leasing, and I built some individual storage units on there as well. Just because, I'll add some on there, just because people lease it. Those individual units, I mean, they weren't even 10% of the units I had, and they were the biggest pains in the asses I've ever dealt with. And they come and go. They lease for a month or so. It's much more management intensive. These guys that would park a boat or RV there, they're like, hey, can I just write you for a year and just be good? And so it was so much better. But people do say the storage is automated. And I'm like, I don't know who's automating this because this thing's a nightmare.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot more than we bargained for sure. I mean, I was earlier this morning, Joey's like, oh, God, we had like 4 break-ins over there, so
that's storage units. I'm having storage wars out there on Saturdays, I'm so glad I'm done with that place.
So I agree with you on that. So now you also just wrote a book.
Yeah.
tell us about your book, man. What made you? Well, first off, what made you want to write a book?
Well, so we've got so many new people that call us all over the U.S. to, asking, hey, I'm looking at building, blah, blah, blah. And so me and Austin and Tran, we sat down, and we're like, look, we're going to write a book and we're going to give it to these guys to help out. And so it took us all last year to write it. And by the time we got done with it, we're like, look, we're not going to give this shit out anymore. It took us too long. So we're going to put it up for sale and just try to make a little bit off of it. And we're not making a killing off of it, but we were very surprised by how many sales that this book has gotten so far. I mean, it's probably selling on Amazon alone probably 4 a day.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
I was very shocked by it. Like I said, we're not becoming millionaires off of it by all means, but we did it to help people out. I mean, we do give quite a few of them away, but it was really just to do that. And it's worked out pretty well. And I'll tell you, there's so many notes in there that you can tell the sections that I wrote because it sounds like I talk. And so it's like, hey, if you're having issues here, just give me a call. Yeah. And so you'd be surprised how many people have like, hey, in this section you didn't elaborate enough and you said to give you a call. And I'm just like, yeah. I'm sorry, that's that Grand Prairie education. Yeah. Let's get it figured out. And so it's helped out. And, we've actually picked up a few projects from it as well. And so it's been good.
Well, so when you do something like that, you become the authority in that marketplace, right? Because, I mean, does anyone else have a flex book?
No, but there's about 10 million multifamily and residential real estate, just like your Carlton Sheets over here. I mean, there's a dime a dozen on those. I think there's stuff in like retail and other asset classes, but flex, there's not.
Yeah.
And so maybe because we're the first ones in, that's kind of why we got it. And I'm sure it'll be flooded with others, but we should probably we've been talking about figuring out ways to promote the book a little bit more. We're big promotional guys. We just haven't gotten around to it. I got married earlier this year and have been kind of traveling quite a bit, more than usual. And so, but yeah, no, very, very pleased with it. We're actually, me and Tran will be in Houston, at some promotional events with it. And,
y'all are going somewhere tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I'm excited. It's been good. It's been fun.
Well, okay.
And it's a short read too. It's only like 100-something pages.
Yeah.
So it'll get your attention. I'm actually working on the Audible.
Yeah.
But I have to keep deleting it because every time you hear your voice, you're like, God, I sound like trash. Like, I'm going to have to get an AI voice to do it. And so, we'll have that done here pretty soon. But man, it's been great.
Well, I think I think on things like that, it's a very niche thing, right? So 4 books a day, if you average selling 4 books a day, that's 1,200 plus books a year, right? Like, if you get 5 listings out of that, like,
it's already been worth it because I can tell you there's been several people that have called and been like, man, because we've got, I'm big, like I said, I'm always big on marketing and branding, and I've got a really good section in there on, how to market and brand a park and, best practices and what we see mistakes that people make. Those are probably more of the big things that people look for is how do I not make these mistakes? Because, with as many transactions as our team's done, I mean, we've seen not every mistake in the book, but a lot.
Yeah.
And so, we try to outline those, but it does feel good when some people call and they're like, hey man, I really like this book and, I do appreciate it. And it sounded like you were talking to me and I'm like, well, yeah, that's how I wrote it.
Well, that's what, some of the benefits of us doing this podcast is like, I had a broker call me the other day. He goes, hey man, I haven't talked to you in a while, but I feel like I talk to you every day. We're on this, we average probably around 700 to 800 listeners a week,
nice.
And that's, call it an hour average of time. I mean, that's 700 to 800 hours of time in front of people, thinking about us, which just kind of hopefully puts us just maybe at top of mind with somebody one day when they go, oh man, that sounds like a deal for Matador that work for those guys, and, so I think what you're doing with that is great. And like kind of back to how we started the conversation, I think we're in the very low innings of capitalizing on social media in commercial real estate because a lot of people just don't do it. And, a book's not social media, but you'll promote the book on social media. But it's just, It's about being the authority in the marketplace, right? And I think that's what you're doing, and I applaud you for that because I think that's really cool because no one else has done that. So,
well, I appreciate that, and I've read very few books, so to have written one is pretty interesting. But like I said, I had the help of two guys in our office that are significantly smarter than I am.
Well, so y'all got 5 people on your team, right? Yeah. So tell me I mean, I know Michael real well because we did a couple of transactions together, and then who else you got?
So we got Austin. He's been with me a long time, many years.
Me and Austin sold an office building together right down the street.
Did you?
Yeah. We sold a building on Plano Parkway right down the street.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
I had a user that wanted to buy an office building, and
that's right. Yeah. And so Nick Miller, who I think you may know as well, and he's been with me for many years. And Zoe, she's been with me for probably 10 years now. I think we're probably trapped together at this point. No, actually, that's all we got is 4.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so you're primarily in Texas. Do you operate in any other markets?
We do. I mean, we're doing stuff right now in Georgia, Florida, Ohio, Denver, Oklahoma City. We're doing stuff all over right now. Okay. And all that is flex.
Yeah.
And it's all new build stuff and people that are doing new construction, building it, leasing it, and wanting to sell it.
That's great, man. Well, there you go. There's your book. You'll end up selling every flex park across the nation at some point.
I sure hope so. But it's been good, and the best thing about it is our team is real tight knit. As you know, I mean, we hang out on the weekends, we hang out at nights. All of our wives are real close to each other, and so it's been. It's been a good experience for us to do, and as we continue to try to evolve and advance and be better than the next, that's something that continuously drives us. Because if I feel flat, if I feel like I'm not progressing, I've always battled anxiety and panic attacks. That's when that stuff really starts to settle in. Yeah. And so I've always got to be doing something and moving. Otherwise, I feel like I'm like regressing.
Yeah. So we just moved in this office, and, our other office was like 1,200 feet. So like we were all on top of each other all the time. And now we're in 3,000 feet. And Will went to that iOS convention the other day in Long Beach. And so he wasn't here. And it's, it was so quiet. I was like walking around. I was like, are we going out of business or something? I was like, there's usually like this constant noise going around, and it's Will just, So, to your point of like always kind of moving around and shaking. That's him, man. He's like always just he's like hovering around the office all day long and stuff like that.
I get home, my wife's like, you can't like sit down, you can't simmer down at all, and I'm like, I just have to move. I don't know why.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: what's one of the most awkward cold calls you've ever made, or situations on a call you've gotten into with somebody?
I actually cold called Mark Cuban many years ago and actually talked to him. I didn't know it was him until I hung up. I can't tell you how many dead people I've called. That, what I'm saying? You call them, they're like they're dead, and you're like, oh God, condolences.
So, are you the decision maker now?
We did have a guy, I will tell you, we had a guy that worked at Marcus for a real short amount of time, and his calls were always the best to listen to because he was a triple net lease broker, and those guys are just, all they do is call. And a lot of times they're not interested in establishing a relationship. They're like, hey, do you want to sell? Yes or no? No, and they hang up. Yeah. Well, he called one, and I remember he asked for the guy, and they were like, I'm sorry, who is this? And he's like, oh, my name's Matthew. And they go, oh, he's dead. And he goes, well, that's funny because it sounded like you were just about to go get him, but now that you found out that I'm with Marcus, he's now dead. So like, what's going on? And he just would always have those conversations, and we always thought those were great. I mean, the most awkward ones I've ever had, are just people that maybe have been called too much or think you're a solicitor and just kind of go off on you and whatnot. And it used to affect me a little bit, but now I'm just like, hey, I'm always, I'm a big believer. If someone doesn't want to work with you, there's no point in pushing it. And so if somebody can't see your value, there's no point in trying to show it. Yeah. In some cases.
That's I'd love to hear the guy argue with people. Was he really dead? Like,
Well, they made fun of me a while back ago because and this was years and years ago, but we would segment out call lists, and we're like, hey, none of these people have been called in a while, so let's just all book down and call them. And for some reason, I don't know how I got stuck in my notes. I didn't update it, but I called and asked for Russell Stover, which he's been dead for a long time. And, but they had the wrong person, but it was a warehouse that they occupied. And so they're like, he's hasn't been around in a long time. Like, well, wake him up.
Yeah.
Let's get something going.
Yeah. Well, Russ's son, Sean Stover, around.
Yeah.
Russ Jr. So what'd you call on Cuban for? What building?
He had a industrial building in Dallas a long time ago. I don't think he owns it anymore, but I'd actually talked to him, and then he had said, yeah, he's maybe thinking about selling it. And I talked to one of the guys after, and he goes, I think that's Mark Cuban, like the Mark Cuban. And I was like, oh, snap. And we tried to call him back. He never answered.
Yeah.
But that actually did a lease for a company that he was part owner in, as a matter of fact.
Oh, yeah?
An office lease a long time ago. And so, yeah, I had a little run-in with him again there.
Oh, that's cool. Did you say, hey, you remember me?
He did not. I can assure you he did not.
What's probably like the most unique deal you and your team have ever pulled off? Or like, it doesn't have to be the biggest one, but like one that just stands out in your mind is like, man, that one.
Man, we did one that was like a 1031 transaction where someone was selling a deal and we lined them all up to close like all within the same week a while back ago. And that was a tough one to do because we had some difficult sellers, a couple difficult buyers. But, one was selling, he was 1031ing into this one, and this guy was going to 1031 into this one. And so we did 3 trades in a very short amount of time, which was tough. But as far as unique deals go, I mean, that's really about it. A lot of them are pretty standard. We keep people on the same track, kind of moving on down the road. We've seen people, make major money on sales, and we've seen people cut checks to sell.
Yeah.
And so, we've seen quite a bit.
On your 1031 deal, was it flex deals or all flex deals?
Mm-hmm.
Flex to flex?
Flex to flex to flex, yeah. And we got done with that. We all went out and ate at Wicked Butcher afterwards. Yeah. That was tough.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool, though. That's pulling all that off and making it all line up and making the dominoes fall. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's kind of like the habits and routines and things that y'all do on the daily? It's your team or you personally, or like what makes you tick like that?
As far as team habits, I mean, we hang out a lot together. We're always kind of talking about, growing, figuring it out. We deal a lot on Fiverr and Upwork, because those folks help us out a lot as well, just to help us get creative. But we're always just kind of getting creative. We have a team boat we go out on all the time. Me and a couple of guys, we work out together quite a bit. Yeah. But as far as me and routine, I wake up, I am addicted to the cold plunge. I don't know if you've ever done it, but I do it.
I've done it when my pool's cold. I don't have one, but when it gets cold, I'll go jump in there.
Okay, I do that pretty much every day, sometimes twice a day.
Rich Young is addicted to it.
So is Ward. Ward does it. He does it all the time. He's got a great machine, and I know several of the guys that do as well. But yeah, I get in it. I love staying in it. I've got my mom getting in it now. My wife gets in it every now and then. Yeah, I like that. But my routine is I'm a real homebody. Yeah. So when I'm done with work, I go home and I'm just kind of home. I don't like to vacation much. I don't like to go out much. I just like to spend time with my family. And, obviously I'm a big classic car guy. And so I love working on cars and, restoring them and things of that nature. And so that's where a lot of my time is outside of work. Because, people think I can be loud and, whatnot. But man, as soon as I get home, I just close it all off.
So at your new house, are you going to have a little car garage out there to work on?
I did at my last one. It was great. I've got another one here that I just finished, and looking at finding another ride to build and put in shows.
So do you build them and keep them, or do you sell them? And...
Yeah, I mean, I've sold several, but I've got several that I've had for a long time that I'll never sell. Yeah. I've got a really cool, you've probably seen it, a 72 Mustang that's the Dominator. Yeah. And, I can win any car show with that thing. It's just the coolest ride. And, I bought that car in Abilene and it broke down all the way home, but I got it home, restored it. Took me 7 years, because I did a lot of it and, except the paint and obviously certain things like that. But it's got a lot of heart in soul and blood, sweat, and tears in it. And, my he's a big Mustang fan. And so it's just a car that's very symbolic.
So how did you, well, hang on, before I want to talk to you about cars, but how long do you sit in the cold plunge?
It depends on how I feel, but 3 to 5.
3 to 5. Yeah. That's all you need. Do you have the running water one where it shoots the water on you, which breaks the thermal barrier?
Because it doesn't let you get warm. Yeah. And so it's got 2 jets on it. I've got a chili goat, so it's got 2 jets, and it's constantly at it. I think the lowest it can go down to is like 36, 37. Which I can't get. I've been doing it for a long time. I still struggle getting into the 30s because it's just like pins and needles. And every time I get in there, my anxiety raises, and I'm like, man, my body's going to like freeze up, and nobody's going to be able to help me, and I can't get out. And so I just operate in the 40s.
Yeah. I'll tell you funny. Like I said, Rich Young is a huge cold plunger, and he goes, I was talking to him the other day. He goes, yeah, I was on a tour. He goes, and we had about an hour in between buildings, and I told him, I was like, hey guys, I got to go run, take care of something real quick. He said he ran home and cold plunged and came back to the tour.
Man, I'm telling you, if you deal with anxiety or panic attacks or just stress, it is the best, like, just de-stressor, just relaxer, even though when you're in there, you just want out.
Yeah.
But after 30 seconds, you're usually fine.
Yeah, you get used to it.
But what it feels like is it renews your body. Yeah. And that's what I like about it. And so, I'll do it in the morning. And then if I have a stressful day at work, I'll come home and I'll just get right back in it.
And do you let your body naturally heat back up?
Yeah. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Although I've got in my pool in the evenings and then got in the shower, in a hot shower afterwards. That feels pretty good too.
Oh, well, yeah. And, if you get into a cold plunge, it's very difficult to sleep very quickly after too.
Yeah.
But no, I like to naturally warm up, and there's time like my knees are still cold today from it, so it can take a while.
Yeah, Well, you're up. I bet you're up after that once you get up.
Oh yeah, I trip and fumble and am dragging up against the wall on my way to it, and then when I get in, I'm like snapped up.
Yeah,
and I'm scrolling on my phone, figuring stuff out, yelling at the dogs. Yeah, it's I enjoy it. It's.
What how did you get into cars so much? Was your dad into cars? Or?
My dad, he always liked muscle cars. My grandfather, I spent a lot of time at his house, and he always bought old cars and fixed them up and resold them. Mm-hmm. And like these are just beaters that he just barely got running just a little better than what it was, and so he's not doing like full restorations. He's buying a car for $800 and reselling it for $950, kind of thing. And so, but I spent a lot of time with him. He always had, some cooler, older rides, and I've just always enjoyed American muscle cars because they just have a different feel than any other car.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing that I really know how to work on too, because, that's kind of what they, worked on. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And, I love the feel of it. And, people are always like, man, why don't you get like like an Aston Martin or Ferrari, something like that? Well, first of all, I don't want to spend the money for it, but also I just prefer the feel of that raw,
the American
metal
muscle
even
car.
Though it's slower, and not as fast as maybe a newer age vehicle is.
Yeah.
Like my dad's got a new Mustang, and that Mustang was smoke, my Mustang.
Yeah.
But I just enjoy the feel of the older car.
Man, I had a buddy that had a Boss 302 Mustang in high school, and like it was so cool riding in that thing.
Oh, like it's probably one of the faster cars back then too.
It was so cool. Like I don't really know much about cars. I don't know much about engines. I hate it when people are like, "Hey, what kind of engine you got?" And then I'm like, "They're like, you got the
the one that turns on,
the 5.934 Vortec." I'm like, "Yeah,
I got all of them."
Well, then they go, "Which one?" No, so I never understood all that part of it. But I remember riding that guy's car, and I was always like, "Man, this would be something cool to own." And I got a good buddy of mine. He owns they own so many freaking cars. They have. It's crazy to think that people just have commercial buildings full of cars now. You know?
Yeah. No, there's plenty of car guys. You go to a Cars and Coffee or, the Mecum auction, you'll run into a lot of folks that you actually know that you didn't know were huge car guys.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, that was last week, wasn't it? Or a week before?
Yeah.
So, it's, the muscle cars are cool, man. We bought a building, and, the seller of the building had a little side business where he restored cars, man. And he had a showroom, and we go in that showroom, man. And it was It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
All the cars he had in there that he'd redone. And it was really cool.
That's all I want to do is just add more in the garage. That's my goal.
So is that where you end up someday, just doing that?
No, I think at some point I'd like to do something with older cars. You know, whether it's a consignment dealership or selling classic cars or something like that. I think that's something that I'd probably really enjoy doing.
Yeah. No, it's
but it's one of those things that I can tell is going to take a lot of money to do, and it's probably going to be one of those losing money businesses.
Yeah.
Kind of like if I wanted to sell tumblers for a living or something.
Yeah. But it's like, doesn't everybody have one of those now? It's like I opened up my friend's. I was at my friend's house the other day, and I opened up his to get a drink of water. And
Had
I was
20 Taylor Swift tumblers in there.
I was like, this isn't even this isn't even a thing anymore. It's like, it's just a cup now.
Yeah. No, but it's one of those things where, classic cars if you outsource it, it's very expensive.
Yeah. Well, what is there any books that you've ever read? I know you said you haven't read a lot of books, but is there any books that you have read that you?
There's plenty that I have read. One of the better ones that actually I was talking to Ward about this a while back ago was the 10X Rule. I think that's a very good book for like somebody that wants to get into sales and read. And at the end of the day, I think the book basically says whatever you're doing, just do it.
Add a zero behind it.
Do it 10 more. Do it. Hey, if you made 100 calls today, make 1,000 calls tomorrow, and then you'll be 10 times more successful. I think but at the end of the day, I think it's really, there's a lot of motivation in it. There's also a Joel Osteen book that I read a long time ago, regardless of how everybody feels about Joel Osteen. He had a book that was like Think Better, Do Better, Live Better. And it was really just about, changing your mind from, certain thoughts. It's so easy to be negative right now, especially in the political environment that we operate in. Because I tell you, if I turn on, Fox News or CNN, I mean, I'm, it's road raging, and so, but it was one of those things, it was a book that just was to kind of help train your mind to, all that stuff doesn't matter. Your money doesn't matter. None of that matters because all this stuff at the end of the day, whenever you die, you're not taking it with you. Yeah. Wherever you think you're going, that stuff's not going with you. And so that was a very good book. But yeah, I think if you're trying to go into sales, the 10X Rule's a pretty good one. And then obviously, I think Flex Day Domination is probably up for some type of award somewhere.
It's up there. It's Amazon bestseller.
It was number 11 for a while.
There you go.
On the commercial real estate books.
Well,
hey. So
it
probably helped that I ordered quite a few off of. No, I'm kidding. Well, just to boost it.
The 10X Rule, that's Grant Cardone's book, right? Yeah. I read that book, and I read it kind of at the beginning of kind of starting Matador. I read it, and I was like, my goal in the beginning was like, man, if I could get to 100 million worth of real estate, in 5 years, that'd be huge.
Yeah.
And I mean, we did that. After I read that book, I was like, nah, screw that. I got to get to 1 billion, right? So, and we hit 100 million like in 2 years, so like I really enjoyed that book too. Just kind of thinking about it, just helps you think a little bigger, that's what it helped me do. Just like, hey, and now we're at the point where it's like, man, like, can we just do bigger deals now, because we can, and, but I agree. I really enjoyed that book. It really helped, I don't know, kind of just stretch your mind a little bit on what you can do. And, so anyways, I was a big fan of that one. So.
Yeah, no, it's good. And, cause it's easy to think small and to think of, I'm going to make this much money on this particular deal, right? Yeah. Well, once that deal's done, you're also done at that time. And so especially when you're doing leasing or sales, I mean, you're only as good as your past deal. Yeah. And so when you think like that, which I did when I first got in the business, because I was like, man, if I can get $199 a month, I can get a Cadillac CTS. Yeah. And, that's kind of how I thought at that time, but that's thinking step by step by step. And so, but yeah, it helps think on a much larger scale and also to, like I said, but there's a lot of things in there that are like, you physically just can't do.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
And so,
but but just kind of stretching yourself a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a compounding effect. If you do, you do add a little more, a couple days a week on something, if you make 100 calls and you make 110, that compounding effect adds up,
Yeah. And that's back then when the Grant Cardone was like really big into his sales and whatnot, and, was really on fire. Did you ever listen to his 2 cents in 2 minutes?
No.
He always had great little things where he's like, these are my 2 cents in 2 minutes. It was like a video. It was like a 2-minute video.
Yeah.
And you could tell he just thought of it when he woke up, because he's like, hey, you're out making calls and, they don't like you. Who cares? Just keep calling back again and tell me you're not going to leave him alone until he sells with you. And so it was, he had a lot of good stuff back in the day.
It's funny when my brother came on here, he had the cash flow hat on.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty funny. But no, I've enjoyed a lot of his content. I thought he's done a great job with all that. And, it's when you start off in sales, it's good hearing just kind of these other guys that kind of fire you up,
Oh yeah, I still listen to it. I need to get fired up. I listen to Andy Elliott every now and then while he's, yelling. You know who he is?
Yeah, you ain't got abs.
Yeah. He just yells at you on the phone. And so I listen to him all the time. And he's like, if you're not, if you don't have abs, and I'm sitting there like, man, how do I get some roids to look like this guy and get these abs that I need?
Yeah.
All my life problems will go away. And so, but I still enjoy it. Yeah, I listen to a lot of him, TD Jakes, and a lot of these guys still to amp me up.
I used to call on TD Jakes. He had a building in Redbird.
He's got quite a bit of real estate.
Yeah,
actually.
he does.
I got a buddy that's helping him out on some development. Interestingly enough,
I never connected with him, but I called on him.
Interesting.
So. he had like a 70,000 foot warehouse in Redbird. So,
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
He's a wealthy guy.
Well, what's something about Cody Payne that most people don't know?
I do a lot of acting on the side. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, that's right. Y'all made a short film, right?
Yeah, I do. Well, there's quite a few short films that I've been in by just other people.
Yeah.
And so I do some acting on the side. That's something that a lot of people don't know.
How many films have you been in?
I don't know, probably 10.
Really?
Yeah.
And so how did
They're all shorts though.
Yeah.
I don't do any, actually, what's funny is, actually, I ran into a guy who was casting. I met him in an office building, and they were actually casting for folks for a Netflix movie. And I said, hey, I'm an aspiring actor. I love doing this kind of stuff. Can you keep me in mind? I showed him some of my videos. I showed him some, because I did some fight scenes in a really cool short.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I think you'd be great. And he actually hooked me up for a role in a Netflix series, but I couldn't do it because it was actually shot out here in Duncanville.
Oh, yeah?
And I couldn't do it because the shooting was between 8 p.m. and 3 a.m., like quite a few nights.
Yeah.
And obviously I've got a job,
Yeah.
and so I just do it for fun. But I was real close to getting a decent role in a series.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But it's already an hour drive from my house at that time. And it was like Monday through Thursday, because it was a night shoot kind of deal. And so... But no, I actually just got cast in another short film that I'll be doing in Denton that I don't know a whole lot about it. It's a little robbery movie, and I'm just going to play a auctioneer. But I did another one that was like a Batman knockoff recently too.
Yeah.
And I went in there thinking I was going to get to be the vigilante.
Yeah.
Because I was like, guys, I know karate. I can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm agile. I'm reliable. Your shooting dates work for me. I went in there, and they're like, you know what? We think you would do good as the dad. And I was like, well, fuck it. All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so
I don't see myself as the dad, but I'll take it.
Yes. And so I said, that's fine. And so, but no, I that's something that I enjoy doing. It's maybe something that I'll expand on more, but there's a lot of short films that are shot in DFW, Houston, and Austin.
So
and
when did you get into acting?
Years and years and years ago. I did some in, I was in like plays and stuff in like middle school and and whatnot, but got into it years ago, and just kind of met some guys that, had some opportunities for me, and they're like, hey, we actually need a guy for this. Can you, would you have any interest in doing it? And so, but you'd be surprised how many short films are shot in DFW, and those I can go do on a weekend in many cases. And so they usually work out pretty well for scheduling.
Do you make any money on it, or do you just
I mean, some I do, but I'm
just
on
for
those you can't, I can't really get rich on. I think one paid like $200 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you got an agent?
No,
you book it all yourself.
Yeah, I think that's why they the last one that I did. I think that's why they were so excited, because they were like, hey, will you do it for $200 an hour? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah,
and they were like, really? And I was like, well, I'm sure. After thinking about it, I'm like, I could have got it more, and I thought they were going to start using me for like a sound guy and a stewardess and some other stuff to help around, because they got me for so cheap. But and they were like, you don't have an agent, just making sure. I'm like, no, but it sounded like I needed one.
Yeah. You of all people know you need representation, right?
Yeah, but it's more, I do it more for fun than anything. And so, I mean, there's quite a few that I've done for free too. Yeah. And so some of these guys are just aspiring directors, and when you start meeting them, it's just like any field. I mean, you just start getting opened up to a lot more people. And so I was on set shooting one, and one of the guys that I guess was working on another film, he came up to me and he's like, man, I really liked you. Can we use you for something else? And I'm like, hey, if I can do it in the evenings or at night or on the weekend, let's do it.
Yeah. No, I'm in a band, and when we play shows, we'll make some money, probably $600 to $800, but like I end up just giving it to all the other guys in the band, because I don't really care about it. It's all for fun, right? It's cool to have that outlet, that artistic outlet, and for me, it's just getting up and doing it. And you
ever going to play at the Kessler or anything like that?
No, we played the NAOP show at the Rustic though. That was pretty fun. That was cool, because there was about 600 people there, so that was rocking.
That make you nervous?
No, not really. I've played a lot of shows. I mean, I played forever in my 20s and all that stuff, and I've played a lot of shows. And now I'm playing. We play a lot more like country and rock stuff, which is, I used to play a lot of heavier metal, so that was a lot harder. Playing a country song, it's like it's very easy for me. You know what I mean? So it's not being able to get into that and play, it's pretty easy. So
Texas country is my genre. So
So we put a little album out and all that, and
there you go.
So we play 6 to 8 shows a year, and just whenever everyone's available. I mean, hell, I think we played 5 shows in a row, and then I don't think we've had a practice. That was ended in May, and I don't think we've had a practice since. So it's like herding all the cats. So that's the tough part about a band, is you got to rely on all these other people and their schedules and their lives, and so sometimes I'll end up just playing a lot of private parties and stuff like that, solo and stuff.
If you ever need a backup singer, give me a shout.
There you go.
Yeah. I'll come you got
to be able to sing too, vocals, right?
Yeah.
So, well, man, I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really love watching all your content online. I think I love it when someone can make fun of themselves. You know what I mean? Just have a good time with it. And that's where I think it's great. The people that take themselves too seriously, it's not that great to watch. And so I love watching your stuff. Loved working with your team every time we've done a deal together. I need to get my copy of the book, but
I'll hook you up with one.
Yeah. Will you send me a sign?
To my biggest fan. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So, So, where can everybody reach you? What's your social handle, since you're out there?
Obviously LinkedIn, Cody Payne, Instagram's, Cody Payne as well.
Yeah.
TX Office Industrial, I think it's on Instagram and that. So we're pretty easy to find.
Well, everybody, if you're not following them, you need to. They put out a lot of good content, but y'all put out a lot of good thought stuff on the market stuff too. Yeah. So that's what I said. I enjoy kind of reading your stuff and getting your thoughts and opinions on the flex stuff and whatnot. So, but anyways, man. Well, thanks for being on today. It's great hearing your story, Cody Payne, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.